The other entry that I was curious about this morning is Alchemy, so I'm going to read that as well. That is in the first volume of Universal Standard Encyclopedia, Funk and Wagnalls 1956 edition. So here we go. Alchemy. The term applied to the art practice in the Middle Ages devoted chiefly to discovering the secret of transmuting the more common metals into gold or silver, and the means of indefinitely prolonging human life. Although neither its purposes nor its techniques were those of modern science, alchemy was in many ways the predecessor of science, especially the science of chemistry. Tradition points to Egypt as the birthplace of alchemy. The Greek god Hermes Trismegistus, identified with the Egyptian god Thoth, see Hermes, is represented as its father. But the speculations of some of the early Greek philosophers, notably Empedocles, who first named the four elements, pointed in the direction of a rudimentary chemical theory. Zosimus the Theban, discovered in sulfuric acid, is a solvent of the metals, and liberated oxygen from the red oxide of mercury. The Roman Emperor Caligula is said to have instituted experiments for producing gold out of orpiment, sulfide, or arsenic, and the Emperor Diocletian is said to have ordered all Egyptian works treating of the chemistry of gold and silver to be burned in order to stop such experiments in magic. A school of pharmacy flourished in Arabia during the caliphates of the Abbasides 750 through 1258. The earliest work of this school now known is the Summa Perfectionis, or Summit of Perfection, composed by the Arabian scientist Geber in the 8th century. It is consequently the oldest book on chemistry proper in the world, and a collection of all that was then known and believed. The Arabian alchemists worked with gold and mercury, arsenic and sulfur, and salts and acids, and became familiar with a wide range of what are now called chemicals. They held that the metals are compound bodies, made up of mercury and sulfur in different proportions. Their scientific creed was the possibility of transmutation, and their methods were mostly blind gropings, and yet, in this way, they found many new substances and invented many useful processes. To the Arab alchemists we owe the terms alcohol, alkali, borax, and elixir. From the Arabs, alchemy found its way through Spain into Europe generally. In the Middle Ages, it was chiefly the monks who occupied themselves with alchemy. The earliest authentic works on European alchemy now extant are those of the English monk Roger Bacon and the German philosopher St. Albertus Magnus. Both believed in the possibility of converting inferior metals into gold. This idea excited the imagination and later the avarice of many persons during the Middle Ages. They believed gold to be the perfect metal, and baser metals to be removed by various degrees of imperfection from gold. Thus they sought to fabricate or discover a substance so much more perfect than gold that it could bring the baser metals up to the perfection of gold. This substance they called the philosopher's stone. Roger Bacon followed Geber in regarding potable gold, that is, gold dissolved in aqua regia, as the elixir of life. Albertus Magnus had a great mastery of the practical chemistry of his time. The Italian scholastic philosopher St. Thomas Aquinas, the Catalan churchman Raymond Lully, and the German physician Basil Valentine also did much to forward the progress of chemistry, though on the lines of alchemy, in discovering the use of antimony, the manufacture of amalgams, and the isolation of spirits of wine or alcohol. But more famous than all was the Swiss alchemist Philippus Paracelsus, in whom alchemy proper may be said to have culminated. He held with Basil Valentine that the elements of compound bodies were salt, sulfur, and mercury, representing respectively earth, air, and water. Fire he regarded as imponderable or non-material. He believed, however, in the existence of one undiscovered element common to all, which the four elements of the ancient were merely derivative forms. This prime element of creation Paracelsus termed Alcahest, Alchest, and held that if it were found, it would prove to be the philosopher's stone, the universal medicine, and the irresistible solvent. After Paracelsus, the alchemists of Europe became divided into two classes. The one class was composed of men of diligence and sense, who devoted themselves to the discovery of new compounds and reactions, practical workers and observers of facts, and the legitimate ancestors of the positive chemists of the era began with the French chemist Anton Laurent Lavoisier. See Chemistry. History. The other class took up the visionary, fantastical side of the older alchemy and developed it into a practice based on imposture, necromancy, and fraud, from which the prevailing notion of alchemy is derived. Interesting. Okay, there's no picture for this one, but in this volume there is, I love maps, so I'm going to include a picture of the world in 1956, according to this encyclopedia, continents and countries of both Western and Eastern hemispheres. But I'm just going to include, I don't know, maybe I'll just flip through here. We'll show these maps during this particular passage, give you a little something to look at. So that's it for alchemy. Thank you for listening. Sincerest Kimba. I hope you have a fabulous day.